the February 5th, 2024 evening session meeting of the County Commissioners to order. Welcome those who are here this evening. It's another full crowd. We had a full crowd this morning. It's good to see everybody here. It's also good for you who are watching on YouTube. I welcome you as well. I do have a couple of announcements. One is Commissioner Stevens is not here. She's at the UNC School of Government this week in Advanced Leadership Corps training. I can't wait for her to get back to share with us what she has learned and experienced in that, but looking forward to returning, but she will not be with us tonight. This morning we opened with prayer and a pledge. We will not repeat that tonight, but just for those who are curious, we opened the day with that. And I will say, as we go through the agenda items today, to say that this agenda would have been light otherwise is an understatement. But we are in preparation for our strategic planning session on the 15th and 16th. And in preparation for that, we thought it would be important for us to hear from the different folks and different organizations that will factor in to a lot of the discussion at our strategic planning retreat. So that is why we wound up with this list. And we thank those who came to speak, because it was not quite a full notice we would like to give, but thank you for agreeing to step up and be a part of tonight's agenda. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion we approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The agenda is approved. So the first item is public comments. And the first one we have up, Ms. Leanne Price, who's our director for our elections, will stand up with a very important recognition for us.
Yes, I do. I'd like my board to come up with me if that's
Sure.
possible. Okay. All right. So I have with me tonight, I've got my board chair, which is Gordon Woodruff. I have two board members with me tonight, Deborah Hooker and John Shawcross Jr. And I'd like to tell you that in 2023, we, the Johnston County Board of Elections held an I Voted Early sticker contest for 6th to 8th graders, the students who were enrolled in Johnston County schools. And we received at least 202 submissions for the sticker.
That's awesome.
We narrowed it down to 10. The board got together and narrowed it down to 10, and then we put it on our website for the public to be able to vote for their the sticker that they thought would be best to represent. And I'd like to call Carson McCauley. Carson McCauley. He is an 8th grader at Meadow School. I won't say Meadow Middle School, but it's not. It's Meadow School. Yes. So he won for his design, and I'd like for him to show this to you tonight. And so his sticker design will be used in all of the early voting throughout the 2024 elections, which will be the primary and the presidential. So his sticker won. And tonight, we want to present him with a $100 cash prize that was donated by the Smithfield Cinemas.
Fantastic.
All right.
Would you like to tell me about your sticker, Carson?
I mean, I could.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
That's all right.
So, like I said, when I was first interviewed, I just made it want to make it as patriotic as possible. Like we had the NC flag, we had the U.S. flag, so I kind of just combined them together, like a tear in the middle. I mean, that's really all I did.
You did a
That's
great
very
job.
impressive, I will say.
Good.
Looks
It was
awesome.
very good.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, we'd like to do a photo.
Sure,
Is that fine?
absolutely.
Okay. And
Yeah.
would y'all like to do that?
Yeah, let's, if they came, let's go ahead.
We're just gonna make a
Yeah,
whole thing of it. Yeah, okay. Y'all can get up there.
Yeah, come on up here, yeah.
in front, yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna get in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. All right, I'm gonna take 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank y'all.
Okay.
All right, yeah, congratulations, Carson.
Thank y'all very much for letting us have this.
We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank y'all for letting me do it, yeah.
Thank you for the work y'all do.
Thank you, Gordon. Question.
Yes, sir.
Done.
The state mandates
Leanne?
the early voting period, that we don't have any discretion
Will
in the
y'all
county,
repeat
do we?
this every year? Or is this
Okay.
Probably in the even number of years. We'll do it
Okay,
again.
even,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Hey, Counselor, how you doing?
Thank you all for all you do for us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
We
Gordon.
appreciate y'all as well.
All right, next up, is there any other member or person here tonight wishing to address the board on any item that is not on the agenda? All right, going once, twice, and Madam Clerk, no emails today either, okay. All right, we will move on to our first item of discussion on infrastructure. And I did forget to say, as Shanner's coming up, that we have 6 priorities that the board established: educational funding, financial stewardship, plan use, public safety, our county employees, and infrastructure. So tonight is full of infrastructure items. So with that, Ms. Farmer, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. We have a lot of infrastructure projects. What I would like to do tonight is present to you an update of our, it essentially starts with our 2020 Water and Sewer Capital Improvement Plan. The projects I have identified, and I'm going to summarize and present the action that we've taken on these, is the listing of the entire 2020 Capital Improvements Plan, plus the projects that we added in 2023. So it's the original 2020 plan, plus the projects that have been added since that time. And you'll note as we go through the list, the projects that have numbers beside them, they're assigned a project number. Those are original 2020 projects. And then the ones that don't have project numbers in that column are ones that have been added since 2020, and they're included in the 2023 capital improvement plan that the board adopted. All of the projects are updated with where in the budgetary column, they're updated with our current budget, the actual budget that was spent, or what's included in our 2023 capital improvement plan. And as you know, our CIP is a living document. We are constantly updating this plan. We have actually been working on a 2024 update that we anticipate to be able to present to the board within the next month or so. So this is a summary of kind of where we have been, and then we're going to have a new one for you soon, which will continue to update. A lot of these same projects will be included. And I wanted to note, as I go through here and show, talk about what we've accomplished since 2020, many of these projects take quite a bit of time. When you start talking about from the planning period through design, permitting, easement acquisition, bid, award, construction, closeout, certifications, acceptance, until it's in actual operation, an average project's going to take a minimum of 18 months. Many times it could be 3 years or more on these projects, particularly our large plant projects could be 5 to 10 years, in fact. The first category that I have is our water treatment projects. Since 2020, we have completed almost $5 million worth of construction to add additional capacity at our water treatment plant and or purchase additional capacity. And we currently have under construction almost $90 million worth of improvements. That's the expansion at the existing plant site. And I'm not going to read all of these projects to you. You can go through and look at these different categories that we have. Those identified in gray are the ones that we have completed construction since 2020. Those in the lightest blue are those that are currently under construction. The green projects are ones that we have under design or in a planning period. The light orange or peach type construction, those are our planned improvements. They're intended to be later on in the future per our capital improvements plan. Because I'll note that capital improvements plan, when it started in 2020, was a 20-year plan. So some of those projects are intended to be in the future, of course. And then the yellow highlights are projects that we've postponed. We thought we needed them in 2020, but for whatever reason, some of those have been delayed, or we've decided we don't necessarily need those as they were originally scheduled. So for water treatment, we have about $470 million over that I will call it a 23-year planning period, because we started in 2020 and we've actually added some projects over the last 3 years. So for 23 years, that's what we are looking at. A big portion of that cost is our next long-term, what I would call our long-term water supply, to develop that new water supply in the lower Neuse. We've been talking about that project. We are definitely in the initial planning stages, been working with the state on getting that, ensuring that that project will be able to move forward. So that's a big portion of those costs. But you can see, since 2020, the accomplishments we've had with completing construction and getting projects under construction. And the water district projects, this is our transmission lines, our water distribution system. This is all of the lines that we need to construct to get, essentially to meet our demands through 2043. And all of the gray ones, again, are those that we have completed since 2020. Construction's been completed on $42 million worth of improvements for transmission in our system. We've got $5 million under construction, and then you can see these ongoing, and the ongoing one, I should have mentioned that earlier, that's the darker blue category. Ongoing projects are ones that may be recurring. It may be something we do every year. For example, each year, we've got several projects where we'll replace old water mains that we've had problems with, or it may be updating hardware on our, or hardware for our meter reading, those kinds of projects. So those are kind of ongoing that you never really finish. They just always are recurring, require recurring capital investments. But again, 23-year capital improvement, almost $240 million. I will note on this one, a big portion on this, when you look at the future planned improvements, is the future anticipated water transmission mains we are going to need to move water from our future water supply source in from the lower Neuse, that portion of the county, back to our higher demand areas of the county, the more rapidly developing areas of the county where we anticipate future higher demands. So that's that a big majority of that $164 million for the future. This map summarizes the projects that are identified on the list. It may be kind of difficult to read for those who are further away, but the red, the darker red, are the projects we have completed since 2020. The blue are our future plan projects. The green ones are the ones under construction. And then we still have the under design ones in yellow on here. So this just kind of highlights so you can see where our projects in recent years have focused and where they will likely continue to focus in our higher demand portions of the county. These are the projects we've also had in the eastern part of the county. Just because a lot of our growth is in our western part does not mean we don't have projects throughout the entire county. This one, one of the things that we have done on this side of the county and we have under construction now is replacement. We have the AC water main project where we are replacing the asbestos cement water mains that have been in our system for many years. Okay, so next is wastewater. That was our kind of a summary of our water projects. Our wastewater projects, if we move over to wastewater treatment, again, these are all categorized with the same color scheme method here, so you can tell what's been completed in recent years versus what's under design and under construction. The important part to note on our, the largest project that we have under construction right now is, of course, our wastewater treatment plant, our new wastewater treatment plant on County Home Road. The project is still on schedule to be completed this summer, along with the biosolids improvements and the effluent force main that go along with that. So that's going to be a tremendous completion when you add that to the completion we've already done in the last few years, where that will be a significant investment completed. And then we're going to continue to have expansion projects as needed over time on this list with those future planned improvements to add additional capacity. We have under design the expansion to that new plant. Our intent is to be able to bid that later this summer so that we will be bidding the expansion to the plant as the new plant is coming online to continue to increase that capacity of our system, our treatment system. For our wastewater collection system, this one is very similar, and we've completed almost $30 million worth of improvements of construction in the last 3 years, and we have about $50 million under construction right now, with several of those almost completed, and we just won't be able to bring them online and operate them until the new plant is online. So we have completed significant construction and improvements in the last few years. Of course, we still have several under design, and of course, those future planned improvements that we will continue to work on through our capital improvement plan process as they're scheduled and needed. A map to go along with this shows where we have focused most of those improvements and where we plan to continue to focus those improvements based on the current plan. And that's in our, this first area is our retail service area in the Cleveland McGee's Crossroads area. You can see that we've completed several projects and have some under construction and under design. We also do have one on this map as well in the Four Oaks area. That's our Four Oaks to Benson Highway 301 force main. We had planned to do some replacement on that force main. We've had some problems on it and or upgrade it, but we have delayed it right now until we can finalize that contract with the town of Benson and we know what the future may look like there. The remainder of the projects can be seen. Really, most of these are to provide bulk service that we provide. With Smithfield, Selma, Pine Level, and Four Oaks, many of these projects focus on ensuring we have sufficient capacity for our bulk customers. And of course, there's also some retail service in the Wilson Mills area on these maps as well, and up near where it says Clayton K5 wastewater pump station. That service area, we have a few retail customers as well. So a summary of these projects and where we are now. We have completed almost $88 million worth of construction in the past 3 years, which I think is important. It's important to note what we've been able to accomplish and get these facilities online to have this capacity available for our customers. In addition to that, we have $274 million worth of contracts under construction right now. Again, these are contracts under construction, not going to be, are under construction. We have under design or planning. That says $453 million. I would note a big part of that is that future water supply project, which kind of skews that number. We're planning it, but we have not entered into contracts for that amount at this time. And then, of course, we've got those ongoing projects that require recurring investments. That's around $50 million. $321 million is still projects remaining in our capital improvements plan over the next 20 years. And then we've got $8 million we've got on there for postponed improvements. So those are projects we don't anticipate having to tackle right now. We will, as we update our capital improvements plan, we'll determine where they need to be in there or if they need to be removed. So we're just over $1 billion in our investments for essentially a 23-year plan for our projects. And I've added just a few fun pictures of construction going on. Most of this is what's going on at our wastewater treatment facility, and I would invite any of you who are interested in a tour of the site. We would be certainly willing to take you around when our contractor allows it to see what's going on there. We hope we'll be able to be operating that plant by the end of this summer. But you can see the millions of dollars worth of investment that we've completed and will have for new capacity available for our customers. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
That was a lot of information.
It is.
I'm going to look to this side first.
I went to the Sharon Harris nuclear plant during construction years ago. That's what this reminds me of. I do have a question about that wastewater, the water transmission, the future plan. That didn't include anything for the reservoir, did it? The rock quarry.
So the future plan is development of
the numbers that we had in this chart, when you're talking about the lower Neuse River Basin.
Not necessarily for land act. Well, it includes everything for the next 23 years to develop, which I think was, I can't remember off the top of my head, I want to say around 30 million gallons a day of treatment capacity, and that plant would be at the existing quarry site, and it would be utilizing the existing quarry that we already own and operate.
Right.
And the
Already own
intake
it.
line to that one, yes. It wouldn't be a future, it would not be a future quarry, it'd be that existing
Right.
one.
And bringing that 30 million gallons, or $30 million, I can't remember what you said, but from the Princeton facility to the area of growth, which is up in the Cleveland area more, you have that's the figure that's in there.
Right, that was one of those numbers in the water transmission lines. It was one of those that didn't have a number beside it. We haven't identified the exact details of each of those, but that's something that we're updating in our hydraulic model now to be able to identify where those will need to be over time. And the intent would be to phase those. That's the same with the, yes, over 20 years we have this kind of investment, but we certainly wouldn't necessarily build that water treatment plant 30 million gallons a day right off the bat. We would phase it in over time.
The new plant and the 2 million gallon expansion of our existing plant with the instrumentation and stuff that we just now want to award pretty quick now, I guess. Bid it pretty quick now. That will bring our treatment capacity up to 13.5 million gallons a day.
At the
With that 2
wastewater
million
plant?
gallons back in there.
Right, we would be able to upgrade that 2 million. there.
Anybody else have any other questions? I've got something I was on, but I did want to say, we talked a lot about the expense side of the stuff, but according to the best information you have now in our system development fees and our user fees, we would see that covering all the things we've got coming up. That is,
All of our financial modeling is based on the enterprise fund solely supporting the projects, with the intent of the system development fees funding these needed capital improvement projects, the ones that are for new capacity. And you may recall last year we did a system development fee update, and for the water side particularly, we did not go to the maximum amount that our study would allow us to go to. We're stepping towards that. So the intent would be a recommendation this year for fiscal year 24-25, where we would likely increase that again on the water side to get closer to be able to cover, to maximize the growth paying for growth.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that was the point I wanted to make.
That's the
For the
intent.
public, that is the intent as we go through this and
Yes.
balance those to make sure that growth is paying for growth, that we hear once or twice mentioned to us that it's not doing it, so to know that is part of what we're working on and our intent is to do
Yes,
that.
and that's important. And some of the things, like you said, the ongoing projects I mentioned, a lot of those are more maintenance and repair, rehab and repair, and those are going to continue to occur, though, as our system ages. Those are expenses that, everyone, all of our customers will continue to have to share.
All right. Go ahead.
Sharon, I just want to say that over the past several years, several occasions, I've looked at your future plans and your CIP, and I'm always really impressed with your entire team has a great handle on moving this county forward, and I just really appreciate all your hard work and dedication to doing that. It's a lot of moving parts, but it starts to make more and more sense as we get closer and closer, and so thank you for your work on it. I think it looks, you got a great plan. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
But I did have a few more things, so I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry about that.
So on the stuff that I think Commissioner Braswell was talking about, so when we finish this year, the plans for the next phase is basically to begin, or to bid that. We're going to bid it right before we're done, or when will the next phase?
Are we talking about water?
Well, wastewater, yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Yes, so we are working on financial planning now for a revenue bond issuance this summer. And our intent would be, that would be one of the largest project likely in those revenue bonds would be to expand the new plant. So we would bid that this summer to, as we're wrapping up construction of the existing, of the first phase. And a lot of the first phase, initial phase, some of the components were sized for an expansion. We're not going to have to upgrade the entire thing. It's just adding several pieces instead of upgrading everything. For example, the preliminary treatment facility where we take out sediment and fine materials when that's coming in, that's already upsized to go to like, it's either 10 or 12 million gallons a day. So we're not upsizing that initial piece, just certain pieces would have to be expanded.
Okay. And then you had mentioned the CIP and for the things that we had to, that are in the plan currently. I know one of the things this board has talked about is regionalization, which is, I would say not a new wrinkle, but maybe reinforcing that wrinkle and maybe looking at that a little harder. And I do know, I think this is true, that the regionalization phase 2, and we're looking at maybe March to receive a draft of that report.
We're supposed to have a preliminary report, I think, by the end of February with the intent of a final one by the end of March.
Okay, even better.
If they're able to, if everything works out as planned.
All right, so then that will help us figure out where to go.
Right.
Also, the other thing that I did want to mention, that we have been in meetings with the towns and the county, and we have the Central Pines Regional Council is helping facilitate, but we've been having regionalization meetings with the towns, I was going to say 6-8 months now, and it seems that we have general consensus. We want to move forward. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but we're still in that formative stage where we're evaluating options where we can look at internally within the county, how do we best serve the citizens of Johnston County. Again, it's early on, but we are having those discussions, and I think that's the first time, at least that I can find, where all the towns and counties have been sitting in routine meetings to have on any topic. So that is a plus, that the cooperation and collaboration are there, like I'll say, like never before on that. And I do appreciate. I know that you're, a lot of times we throw things at you up here, and you're like, yeah, you smile at that, then yes. So I know we do throw some challenges, but I do appreciate you and your staff for being flexible and nimble and adjusting to the curveballs that we throw at you. So thank you again for this report.
Another thing too, as we develop the specific direction outlined in our land use plan, may require some modification of this as it relates to working with the towns to, push density that way and help them do what they need to do.
And another big piece of that is our outlying residential sewer service area, which is the very limited areas we provide residential sewer service. Those may need to be modified to match what comes out of the land use plan, or maybe not. But that'll certainly be something we'll keep an eye on and evaluate as needed.
Right.
And of course, any changes to that change this capital improvements plan.
Right.
Living document.
Right.
It's a living document. All right.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
All right, next up, we have an update from the DOT. Division 4 Engineer Keith Eason is here to give us that update. Keith, good to see you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, and appreciate the opportunity to come today and talk about transportation in Johnston County. So one thing, just a reminder, even have to remind myself at times that we don't deal with just cars and trucks. Transportation is very broad, and obviously including aviation, bike and pedestrian projects, public transportation, and of course highway. That takes a lot of those dollars and a lot of our time, and it is a big focus of ours. But just wanted to point out that we are involved in other modes of transportation, and even though it doesn't take big pieces of pie, we do appreciate the need for those, and look forward to working on those projects all along. Over the next 10 years, DOT anticipates spending approximately $1.35 billion on transportation projects solely in Johnston County. These projects include capital projects, maintenance, bridge safety, and all currently programmed in our state transportation improvement plan. And does not include some of the projects shared with other divisions of counties. So some of the projects like I-95 that comes up into Johnston counties, those funds are technically laid out for other divisions because they're administering those projects, as well as the I-40 project that's administered out of another division. So those funds aren't included in that number. But just to split those out in the side of aviation, we're looking at about 2.6 million. Back in PED projects, about 15 million. Highways, 1.3 billion, which again is the large piece of the pie. And public transit, 1.5 million, and rail, 18 million. And in those projects, we're looking at about 8 bridge replacement projects, 7 interstate maintenance projects, 21 safety projects, and 30 STI projects that are programmed. Just to run over some of those key projects now, one of the aviation projects that we're involved in, and I'd take the opportunity to say most of these projects require partnering from either the town or the counties or, airports in this case with aviation. Sometimes the funds come through us, but transportation's a job that everybody gets involved in one way, shape, or form, whether it's on the planning side or the construction side. So we look forward to partnering, whether it is only the funding or whether we're completely involved in delivering those projects. But the aviation project that's currently for land acquisition and clearing near, for future growth of the airport, that's ongoing now. That's $2.6 million. Bike and pedestrian projects. We have 10 projects that are currently programmed for Johnston County. And just a note that we are completely committed to the Complete Streets policy, which every transportation project we look at it in the mind of multi-mode and what that means. Does it need sidewalk? Does it need multi-use paths? These kind of things. So we take those into consideration for every project. But a couple of bike and ped projects, Greenway connection from East Front Street to Glen Laurel and Clayton. That's along the 42 corridor there. Constructing a greenway from Fox Ridge Road to Neuse River, that's the next section of that greenway. Multi-use path along US 70 business from Wilson's Mills Road to the Neuse River Bridge in Smithfield. And that's something that was funded through a recent CMAQ and CRP grant application. And there's multiple bike ped studies going on also. So you guys are certainly familiar with some of these, but the East Coast Greenway as well as the Mountain Sea Trail are all trying to identify the best location for those things to go as it comes through our region. Johnston County wide trail study, the Upper Coastal Plain RPO is working on part of a $150,000 study that trying to look at the best way to connect nodes within Johnston County with these trails. What are the population center and how do we connect those? Town of Selma Accelerated Bike Ped Plan, that's funded by NCDOT, and Selma matched that, and they are currently working on that. Public transit projects. JCATS, soon to come, purchase of 5 expansion vehicles, funding for operations and maintenance through that. Regional transit services, on-demand transit services for 11 rural communities across North Carolina, looking at how they, I think in the past, a lot of these have been thinking independently, and they're looking now at how do they connect with each other and get people not just around a town, but from a town to another town or through those towns. How do you get somebody from Wilmington to Duke Hospital, and using those plans? Rail project, currently we have a lot of safety projects where we're identifying crossings, upgrading crossings or taking those out in some cases just for a safety. But the rail corridors in this area are certainly of interest, and we've been having some recent meetings on that, and we're keeping rail in the forefront for Johnston County. So that's ongoing, and there's money out there for studies, and those are upcoming. Highway projects currently underway. I mentioned the I-95 project that is just coming into the Benson area there. That project is cost of about $240 million. It's about 35% complete, and estimated completion will be the fall of '26. And all of these dates I give you are contingent, and the funds are contingent upon, you know, what doesn't change or does change as those projects' lives go on. I-40 that I mentioned earlier, that through the US 70 bypass, future I-42 corridor there, project cost $360 million. It's about 90% complete. Expect that to be done this fall. Be able to open that up past 1010. The majority of that project is complete and open. US 70, I heard somebody mention that today. A US 70 project, the future I-42 corridor through Wilson's Mills area, about 72% complete. We expect to complete that project this fall also. NC 42 widening from Glen Laurel Road to Buffalo Road through the Flowers area. That project is substantially complete. We still have, as you all know, it's never complete until the paperwork's done. But that for the average public, that project is complete, and I think even though there were some growing pains through that, I think it turned out really good, and turned out to be a really nice area up there through there.
There are a lot of happy people
I
in
think
that
so.
area now that it's close to the end.
I hope so. Yeah, there was, they were really tired of seeing our barrels and cones, so. Ranch Road extension from US 70 Business 42 to Ranch Road in Clayton. That's constructing part of that new location to tie in there across from the current 42 intersection. Price tag of about $10 million. It's about 50% complete. There'll be some traffic shifts soon in the next 1 to 2 months, and then they'll be focusing on the new location area, trying to get that finished for, hopefully to get that completed this fall. Roundabout at Cornwallis Road, Josephine Road, North Shiloh Road, up just north of Cleveland Road on Cornwallis there. Roundabout at 42 and 96. It's about 43% complete. A lot of utility issues on that one, so once we get past that and we get to the spring, you'll see that one speed up, and we'll probably get on through that. One unorthodox type project that we're working on that we typically don't is a broadband project, and you guys, I'm sure, have heard part of it, but just want to give you an update on that. The 95 corridor, we're installing broadband from, Virginia to South Carolina on I-95, and the majority of that is complete, and we're looking at entering into the next phase of utilizing that, as well as being able to leverage some of that to the private industry. And of course, the whole idea there is to bring broadband to all parts of the state, including eastern North Carolina, and I think it's going to be a big step into that, because even though it's only on 95, that allows anybody to come in and access it from those other less traveled roads and more rural areas that can benefit from broadband service.
That's it. I didn't know I'd heard of that one, but if you get on 40 and on I-42, you'll be doing something then, Will.
Yes, sir. So that kind of does it for the projects we have ongoing for the most part. I'm going to mention a couple of projects that you'll see coming up soon. The I-95 US 70 Business Interchange there, I-95 at the Pottery. That project will be beginning in the next few months. We'll be replacing that bridge and reconfiguring that interchange. Project just from Buffalo Road from 70 right there at the oil terminal area. We'll be building a roundabout at that 5-legged intersection as you leave US 70 area headed back toward the oil terminals. And that project the rest of it will be 3-lane in that section to allow some traffic to be able to turn in and out a little easier through there. 301 Brightleaf Boulevard from Booker Dairy Road to Riggs Road in Smithfield and Selma. That project to be started in 27 is a construction, it's an access management project. So that project, we look forward to that happening, and there'll be right-of-way purchases beginning in 25, construction scheduled for 27. And again, these dates I give you are contingent upon funding. NC 210 from 50 to Raleigh Road up around McGee's Crossroads area, price tag of about $80 million to be right-of-way in 26 and construction in 28 on that project.
Excuse me before you move on.
Yes, sir.
Keith, what would you be doing there on 210?
We'll be building a 4-lane section with a raised median.
Okay.
And some access management, creating some reduced conflict intersections as you see across many places here and other parts of the state.
Okay.
We're starting to see very effective in controlling traffic in and out
Good.
of accesses.
Good, thank you.
And you said Raleigh Road to 50?
Yes,
Okay.
right. NC 42, the one you've been waiting for, from NC 50 to 70 business, that's an 8-mile project, a price tag of approximately $175 million. It's needed today. We would like to see it accelerated. I don't think we're going to see that. Currently scheduled to be delivered, start buying right away in 27 and construction in 29. So if it doesn't change too fast for us to keep up with, we're going to be there at 29 and ready to go. So Cleveland Road, from 42 back to Barber Mill Road. So that's an $84 million project to be constructed in 29. Again, right of way beginning in 27, all contingent upon funding. And NC 242 from I-40 back to Tar Heel Road, just outside of Benson. And that'll be a similar project as the 210 project, kind of a boulevard style raised median with RCIs. We do have a couple of projects that are funded for preliminary engineering only, and we're working on those. And there's actually two, but it's A and B, and it's US 70 bringing up the freeway standards from the bypass back toward this way as you get closer to Smithfield. That area to bring that up to freeway standards, the interstate standards, ultimately to designate that as I-42. One of the projects that has some effect on Division 4, but is not in Division 4, and it affects Johnston County, is the Smithfield Road project that ties in at the Smithfield and I-87, that ties in, reconfigures that interchange up in Division 5 in the edge of Wake County and heads this way, 3 lanes that section of Smithfield Road for a mile or so. That project is still being design process, several alternatives considered, but currently they're looking at a 3-lane with a diverging diamond interchange at the I-87 interchange. And that, though, in the last round of prioritization fell out of what we call, our prioritization process because it did not score well, that will be reconsidered to be submitted in the next round. And I'd be glad to take any questions on this or anything transportation related in Johnston.
All right, now's your chance to ask
I've
about
got
those projects you've been, yeah.
I've got a couple of questions, Keith. You mentioned on the I-95 broadband. Access to that would be not unlike the interchanges on the highway. I mean, companies coming in to, that's a super highway for the internet, but it doesn't reach the Hawkins Road. But they can tie into it along there just like interchanges on the highway.
There's obviously a lot of paperwork that goes along with that, but yes, that's the intent, is 2 ducts were put in out there when we put those. One for our benefit to run intelligent systems throughout up and down 95 and 74. There's
Right.
other corridors in the state. But there's one bank that was put in for anything future from the private industry if they want to utilize that. I mean, this is kind of unprecedented for us to allow private utilities on our control of access facilities such as 95. But it's just one of those things that, as we move into the future, and you said it, that it's equivalent to a highway
Right.
now. So that access will be there, and through some agreements, outside companies would be allowed to tie into that, and we may even you know, I don't think we're looking to make money on it, but we're looking to, from a maintenance side, can we take enough money in from private side to keep that thing maintained and keep it going would be ideal.
Might make it economically feasible for companies to bring it to Hawkins Road,
Yes, sir.
for example.
Cliff, I got a couple of questions,
Yes, sir.
surprisingly. It's, Interstate 42 and 70, how does that, where's the designation start and where does it end once you finish the Wilson Mills project?
Well, it's still designated Future 42 on the
yeah, I
existing
understand that.
70 bypass. And so that corridor, when we finish the Wilson Mills project, would go from I-40 to technically to around Turnage Road. There we're just around the prison area where the Wilson's Mills project ends now. Really, we'd be pretty close to freeway standards all the way to 95, but we really can't claim that because we don't have an interchange with 95, which is going to be really the last big piece of this thing in the end. But there are some at-grade intersections on that section just beyond Turnage Road back toward 95 that we're going to have that really tie into the roundabout that we're talking about putting there at Buffalo Road. We really want to keep that access for a little while in case there's any issues with that project to where any traffic from the oil terminal area or up Buffalo Road need to get out there to where that access comes out to 70. And we would look for potentially leaving that there, but as we progress and we want to really bring that up to freeway standards, we may have to cut that off. And that would really open it up to somewhere just before 95.
Okay, from 95 to Princeton.
Mhm.
Are those bridges up to standards for freeway?
That's a great question, because it would appear so. And the bridges may be, but some of the offsets probably were built not quite to interstate standards. Some of the ramps are not, the design speed doesn't meet interstate standards. So there's going to be some reconfiguration to those interchanges to really bring that up to interstate standards through there.
And there has to be a service road somewhere along there, right? Correct, for all those driveway connections I count. Going
Yeah.
through the,
We do service road studies on those. You know, is it more economical to purchase the property or is it more economical to build service roads? And so all of those are looked at, which way's best on those.
when you're making a determination for access to 70 or Interstate 42, in regard, I know the Wilson Mills project with Swift Creek Bridge has access, and also up there
At Wilson's Mills Road.
at Wilson Mills Road, those
Yes,
two
sir.
access it. Down in our neck of the woods, our access is a 2.2 mile road that has 67 mailboxes on it. And it's dangerous for those people out there.
Mhm.
Is there going to be any consideration for changing access from in the Pine Level, Princeton area?
Obviously, access will look different, but there'll be access at the 70A intersection there. There'll be an interchange access on the other side of Princeton, Pine Street, I think it is, that comes out there where the Bojangles is. Currently, there wouldn't be access at the,
Country Store Road is gone now, right?
yes, sir. And then there are other locations that I can't specifically speak to back towards Smithfield that we have to look at. Obviously, what makes sense. We can't go too far without some type of access. And then, as you put it, we got to give those private those property owners access to those roads that will give them access to future 42.
I understand, and I have no quarrels with anything you're doing down there, but what I'm saying is, and I hope it doesn't happen in Princeton, but coming out, it's, Pine Level's access now is very limited to a couple roads. Actually two now. But I wonder if you'd ever consider, since you're the Division 4 engineer work, Fire Tower Road, we all shut it off. And then about 0.2 of a mile, you got a exit ramp to go through to Salmon that way.
Right.
Why you couldn't flow traffic right through there without even a stop sign?
Well, and that's something we'll consider. As I said a minute ago, that last leg, that area right around 95 is going to be the most difficult part of this process. It's going to be the most expensive and most difficult because obviously as we're sitting here tonight talking about it, it's developing. And as we start to look at what the footprint might look like, and by the time we build it 20, 30 years from now, that footprint may not work.
I guarantee you want to put up with me 20 or 30 years from now.
But we'll certainly consider all those things when we start to reconfigure what it takes to tie into 95, and then how that ties into the existing facilities around there. We'll consider all that.
And my only concern is public safety. And my only concern is for folks who have mailboxes to check their mail, and these used to be rural roads, and now they're no longer rural roads. So that's my only concern, is for the safety aspect for our citizens.
Absolutely, and as much as that concern's there, the concern that we see a lot is, and you probably do too, are the accidents out there with the access that we have to current 70, and it's
Yeah, I can sit in my front porch and watch them, because folks don't understand what a blinking yellow light means. I think you went out there for me one day and watched it.
So that's something, to be able to make it a controlled access facility and label it interstate and limit the on and off so much, something that should increase the safety aspect of that project and hopefully keep a lot of people safe.
Another thing that concerns me, it's in my district also, is the 70 business coming out under the bridge going to that interchange down there, the amount of traffic on 70 business now from Smithfield to that access point on that road. That concerns me. An awful lot of traffic there now.
Yes, sir. We're constantly looking for opportunities to, create projects from the standpoint of what is the need? What's the traffic telling us to do? What's the congestion telling us to do? The safety numbers, what's that telling us to do? And as you know, our process is data driven, and all those things come into play. And if it's a project that's warranted, the data's going to tell us that, and we're going to get it done.
It's just a lot. The traffic now from Smithfield on the way to get to 70 is down Business Highway. The only way to get to Smithfield is through that road, and it's very busy now. So, and people are in a hurry.
Well, the 70 business that I mentioned, the interchange modification near the Pottery, that there's one of those legs that has a rural road tying into the ramp, and that's something that project addresses. That's something that's all, not something we want to see when you got high-speed traffic coming off the interstate, mixing with stop-and-go traffic there. So that road will be realigned as part of that project so that that's a single ramp, and most people's expectations wouldn't think somebody would be pulling out in front of them coming off the interstate like that. So it's just one part of that project that's going to help.
And one final question, this 95 through Johnston County, very dangerous, a lot of accidents, and so how long before you think 95 improvement will come back through Johnston County from Harney County?
I wish I had your answer for that. I do. That's one of our probably top 2 projects in Division 4 that we submit through our prioritization process, and unfortunately, so far, it has to compete on a statewide level. So we're competing against all projects statewide with congestion, with safety, with all the things that we score projects on, and it just hasn't scored that well, unbelievably. But we continue to submit it, and we also continue to do things to make it score better, like every bridge that needs replacing, we replace it with a bridge that we don't run into the situation that we have out there on 70. So if we come in the future with a widened 95, that it's already accommodated for it. Mm-hmm. So a couple of projects I didn't mention were the Pittman Road, Bagley Road, and micro exits that we're going to modify those interchange under projects, and those bridges will be lengthened to accommodate future widening of I-95. Anytime we do that, that technically reduces the price of the I-95 project and may make it score better.
One final question, and I really do appreciate all you do. On exit 97 off 95 or Eastfield project is going, is there going to be some modification? Are they going to realign that ramp or not at that particular intersection?
Some of that's still underway, but there's intersection improvements proposed. There's potentially a new access with 70 beyond the current signal that project would tie into 70. And the idea there would be to do the best we can not to interfere with traffic that's going to go down 70A back toward Pine Level. So that's what we're working, is to look at the long haul point of view of that, and how does it, what detriment is it to our existing public that has to use 70 to get back to Pine Level? As you mentioned, there's only a few ways to get there. So we're trying to make sure that what we do there, the improvements we do there, don't hurt any of the traffic headed back toward Pine Level.
It's just going to be an enormous amount of traffic on that 70A once Eastfield projects are done, so.
Yes, sir, I would agree. And we're working with them to do everything we can to make that, make it work for us in the long haul.
Thank you, I really do appreciate
Yes,
what
sir.
you do.
Keith,
Yes, sir.
the access points there at Woods Road and Collins Boat Works, you know what I'm talking about? The 70 Business Bridge, that is going to require realignment. I was told when the bridge was built there. Of course, I was shocked when you said 20 to 30 years, because for the last 20 years I've been told 3 years down the road, 3 years down the road, and now we're talking about 20 or 30. Maybe we're getting more realistic now or whatever, but I won't be worried about it if it's 30 years.
Well, what I was referring to is really the interchange work at 95. That's really the last piece of that puzzle that I think will be the last piece of that puzzle, is the current 70 that goes over 95, to really label it interstate. The federal FHWA says that has to have access to the other interstate. So you got loops and ramps, and we don't really have anywhere to put them.
Because you got to be able to exit at the same speed it's on the interstate,
That's
right?
exactly. Well, within 10 miles per hour.
Right.
So yes, and in the future when that comes, we're going to have less place to put it.
Yeah, because it's going to keep getting developed.
It's going to be an uphill battle. Now, the area you're talking about, I don't know in detail what would have to be reconfigured, but I do know that a lot of those ramps on some of those interchanges that were built at Collins, and then down at the next
Stevens Chapel.
Yes, sir. That one, that some of those are going to have to be reconfigured to meet design.
I was told that when the bridge was, a few weeks after the bridge was finished, they said, oh, we got to go back and change those. I said, why didn't you do it while you were here? But I guess it's all has to, you got to get the funding, I guess, to do what you got to do. But it would be really nice for those landowners to know what that configuration is going to look like. If it's etched in stone now, if it's not, but if you have plans, it would be nice for someone to be able to get hold of them so we know what we're doing.
Yeah, all those would be very.
It affects two of us that it.
all those would be very similar. It just might be that the ramps are longer, just to account for more speed. The tie-ins may be at a different place. Now, I can't speak specifically whether the bridges would have to be modified or not, and that's a whole reconfiguration if that's the case.
The engineer's time said the bridges were good. It's only going to be the ramps that were going to have to be modified. But we just wondered what that looked like.
Yep.
Both sides,
If
right, don't we?
If we get to
Both
that point,
sides are-
if we get to that point, I'd be glad to share it with you.
Yeah, I think we can't solve all the
Yeah, no.
design problems tonight, at least I don't want to. So any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question. Unlike my colleagues, I plan on being at the ribbon cutting at some of these third-year projects. Just real quickly on the exit 95 on 95 here, that reconfiguration, I think you said that's going to start within the next
Few months.
Great, fantastic. So is that reconfiguration, does that include any type of widening of the 70 that goes in toward Market Street and Smithfield and out toward the new detention center?
For a little ways, just to tie everything back in.
Right.
It's
Okay.
really not a comprehensive widening for that corridor. It's just, what does it take to get that area from where the ramp terminals are gonna be back tied in?
Right, okay. All right, and I'm assuming there'll be lots of nice illumination and all that, since that is the exit to the county seat for Johnston County. That's our premier exit to come into downtown.
We have worked with the town of Smithfield, and there is a lighting plan on that project, so there is a lighting piece to that.
Okay, good.
Will be lit in. And
This one just died.
sure. So the lighting piece, we've coordinated that, and that'll be part of the project. And anywhere along the way, if there are updates that we need to make within reason, we can do that. How it needs to look, as you say, that's sort of a gateway to this area.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And before I say run, I just want to say thank you for answering all the questions. I know you, as Division 4 engineer, you get a lot of calls, and some of them from us, obviously. But we thank you for the time that you put in and responding and taking the time to respond to us. And I did want to thank our former DOT board rep and our current one, Leo Daughtry, for the hard work that they're putting in on making sure that Johnston County is well represented, and along with the rest of the division, because there's more counties than just us. But thank them for that, and also our local delegation in Raleigh that have been instrumental, particularly on some of these smaller projects, greenways and things that have helped find the funding to make those happen. So thank you.
And I would like to say that he has James Salmons with him here tonight, who's been our Upper Coastal Plain RPO leader for some time now, and he's now with Division 4.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to have him, and I appreciate him being here tonight, because I thought some of your questions may have to go his way.
Yeah.
So,
Well, both of you run then.
and I'd like to echo some of those comments. I appreciate what the board is doing for our county, and anything we can do to help along the way, we'd be glad to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Much good.
Take care of that technical.
All right.
So I will say, as we kind of progress through this, we've taken a look at projects that are on the books or maybe soon to be on the books, or some are finished. And we want to take another dive into more on the planning side and the future things. And we'll start with Ms. Gabby Lawler of Campo with our Southeast Area Study Update.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Gabby Lawler. I'm a transportation planner with the Capital Area MPO. So I'm here tonight to provide you all with an update on the Southeast Area Study Update, otherwise referred to as the CEAS. And just a quick overview of what we'll be going over tonight. So we'll be doing a quick project refresher and update for those who might not be as familiar with the CEAS study, and then walk you through the contents of what you're getting out of the report. Then after that, we will go over project prioritization and the process that was taken to prioritize the recommendations coming out of the study. And then we will go on to next and final steps for the study. So what is the CEAS update? a study that integrates land use and transportation to accommodate existing and future travel needs for the purpose of reevaluating and revising as needed the unified vision and comprehensive transportation strategy that was established in the original CEAS. So the original CEAS study was completed in 2017. So as the title indicates, this is an update to the 2017 plan. And as you are all well aware, there's a lot of growth, a lot of changes that have been happening. So that's why it's important to kind of revisit these planning documents and the recommendations that come out of them to adjust as we experience that change. So at the outset of the study, we revisited the guiding principles which were initially established through the 2017 study, and these essentially serve as the overarching goals for what the study and to help inform the recommendations that are coming out of it. And so at the outset of the study, through public engagement and coordination with the comprehensive technical committee and the stakeholder oversight team, we revisited the guiding principles and tweaked them as necessary based on the feedback. But for large part, the guiding principles remained mostly the same. So in terms of project schedule, this project initiated in spring of 2022, and the report has been completed at this point, and as you can see there, we are working towards adoption efforts currently. So the report is broken up into 6 chapters. So you have, you can see the chapters laid out right there, and I'll do a brief walkthrough of what you're getting in each of those. So in the introduction, you just get the background and the purpose of the CEAS update. What are we trying to accomplish through this study? And very importantly, how the CEAS area has changed since 2017. And it just lays out the project partners and the parties that were involved in the development of this study. With the planning framework, so you've got the 2 engagement phases that were carried out through this process, and a description of the different activities and events, and what feedback we were looking to get, both from the public and from technical and elected officials. So in the regional snapshot, that's speaking to what I mentioned earlier, taking a look at demographics and socioeconomic trends, and taking a look at how much growth is happening, where is it happening, how is the land use changing, and how do we adapt to that. As I mentioned, we're looking both at land use recommendations and transportation recommendations, as the 2 are inextricably linked. In Chapter 4, take a look at land use and the scenario planning. So the scenario planning is what essentially allows us to take a look at, if growth and transportation continues as is, where would we be 30 years from now? And it allows us to compare that to other scenarios of, if we want to correct the course a bit based on those guiding principles that I mentioned at the outset, maybe these are the recommendations that we have to make. And the other big component of Chapter 4 is the land use toolkit, and that provides recommendations by jurisdiction. And those recommendations essentially are helping to provide guidance to local jurisdictions on, if we want to accomplish the goals of this study, these are the kinds of revisions you might want to either take or put in place in terms of policy. So in Chapter 5, this dives into the multimodal recommendations, and taking a look at how the recommendations were developed, and the equitable planning analysis, which helped to inform the development of the recommendations, and then of course all the different modes and recommendations that come for each of them, which is roadway, intersection, truck, freight, rail, bike, ped, and transit recommendations. So then the final chapter is the action plan. And this is, where we take a look at how CEAS is meant to influence regional planning. And so this lays out a prioritization plan for the recommendations that were developed through the study, and it has prioritization maps and project tables that dive into detail on each of those recommendations. And to wrap it up, it wraps with a call to action and conclusion. So for this process to be meaningful, we have to actually put it into play, and that's what that lays out. So taking a look at project prioritization, we use those guiding principles that I mentioned at the beginning, and take a look at all the recommendations that we have, and based on those inputs of the guiding principles and taking a look at where the transportation network is more strained and requires more improvements, they get sorted into these different project horizon timelines, those being near-term, mid-term, or long-term projects. And I'll mention that the project prioritization process was not financially constrained for this. They were sorted based on, which projects would offer, the most travel time saving improvements, and what essentially is needed sooner, and coupled with, feedback from local planners and staff on what makes sense, which improvements need to go together, things like that. So looking specifically at the bicycle and pedestrian mode recommendations, they were prioritized generally by facility purpose and location. So near-term recommendations were those that fill gaps in the network, particularly within towns. Midterm was recommendations that were meant to connect towns, so it's interjurisdictional, and also recreational resources. Long-term recommendations are intended to complete the regional multimodal system, so it's on a higher scale. For transit, the recommendations were prioritized generally by propensity and demand, and when I say propensity, it just refers to areas where you have higher concentrations of the population that are more likely to take transit or more likely to rely on transit. So generally, when you're planning that out, you try to look at where do you have a higher concentration of those populations that are likely to need it. And so the near-term recommendations were those that providing high demand regional connections and microtransit. Mid to long-term recommendations were those that are for areas that likely aren't as transit supportive in terms of land use immediately, but they will be in the future. So those were phased out, and as always with transportation planning, we revisit these recommendations every so often to figure out if anything needs to be moved up sooner. So for roadway, these projects were prioritized generally by congestion improvement based on need. So as I mentioned earlier, this was not financially constrained. It was just the near-term projects are those that provided the greatest improvement, ranging all the way to the visionary category, which is projects that provided no to low congestion improvements. So you might wonder why those are included, but those are generally projects that are put into the CTP, which is a more long-term planning document. Again, recommendations that can be revisited every so often to see if there is a need for them. And so those are appropriately visionary, longer term. For the intersection recommendations, they were sorted into the different categories, basically the same as the roadway ones, where near-term ones were the ones that showed that they would have the greatest improvement in the immediate term and are more needed to keep our transportation network flowing. So, as I mentioned, the project report is complete at this point, so the next and final steps are implementation. So the CEAS update includes land use and transportation strategies for all member jurisdictions in Campo and the UCPRPO. So these recommendations are going to help inform the 2055 MTP, which is currently being developed. I mentioned earlier that since the recommendations are not financially constrained, as a part of the MTP process, these recommendations are going to filter up to that, and when we go through the MTP process, that's when we look at that financial component and figure out if anything needs to be readjusted, and that's when that step comes in. And the transportation recommendations can be incorporated into the UCPRPO areas CTP. So next and final steps, there will be a final touch point with the core technical team this month, and we'll also be looking to schedule local board presentations, working towards endorsement of the CEAS study. And then the final step will be providing a presentation to Campo's executive board, again looking to secure endorsement of the project recommendations. And with that, I want to thank you again for having me here, and I'll open the floor to any questions you all might have.
Any questions for Ms. Lawler? And so I don't know if this is for you or not, but the land use plan update, was that finished in time for them to incorporate this into the study? Braston stepping up.
Yeah, so, okay.
We'll put him on the spot for that.
I was going to mention that Braston was, involved in the core technical team, so that's why we try to have representatives from all the jurisdictions and try to coordinate these local plans to make sure that everything is not being done in a vacuum and that it's all coordinated. But I'll let Braston speak to that.
So as we were deep into the final phases of the land use plan, we did make sure that a lot of those key principles where we try to communicate those to make sure that we're incorporated into the CEAS study. I think you'll see it change quite dramatically as we move toward the NTP, as well as we go through our local CTP as well.
And the only towns not included was Princeton and Pine Level, or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, yeah, I know that was, the more of Johnston County was covered, I think, than maybe in the original one, so.
What about Kinley Micro?
Yes, they were included.
They
Okay.
were in it, yeah.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for spending the evening in Johnston County with us.
Of course, it's good to get out and about in Campo County.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have a presentation on the countywide transportation plan by Mr. Will Letchworth with McAdams. And we had a first presentation on the update was one that is almost complete, and we have another one in its early stages. So,
Sir.
Mr. Letchworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. You're absolutely correct. As that one's finishing up, this one's starting. You've already heard quite a bit about transportation this evening, and you're about to hear a little bit more even after I'm done. And the purpose of the comprehensive transportation plan really is to wrap all that together into one county-wide plan. So you might ask, what is a CTP? Well, first of all, it's multimodal, considers all modes throughout the entire county. It represents the community's consensus and vision on the future of the transportation system and reflects the anticipated growth and development over about 25 or 30 years. So we talked about a little bit of ribbon cutting earlier and whether we're going to be here or not for that. This will carry me through a good bit more of my time in Johnston County for sure. They are can be prioritized, but as you just heard with the Southeast Area Study, they are not fiscally constrained. So we are not planning to a budget much like the STIP is. This is, I absolutely don't use the term wish list by any means. It's not that, but it is responding to a series of goals and objectives that will be developed as part of this study, and then planning to those rather than planning to a budget. It is countywide, as I mentioned. It incorporates the municipalities' plans, and then also plans like you've just heard about, and plans that are upcoming and ongoing, such as the Greenway Master Plan. So it really attempts to tie all of these planning documents together, both land use and transportation, into one comprehensive plan for the entire county. I mentioned responding to the community's vision, integrating land use and transportation, all modes. It also considers environmental resources, so we do quite a bit of analysis on the environmental side, particularly as it relates to things like constructability, ability to get through an environmental planning document, environmental impacts. It's significant public involvement. I'll talk about that in a minute. Just as the Southeast Area study had quite a bit of public involvement, this will as well. And it creates a direct link to project development. So this is really the first stage in planning, or one of the first stages in planning for a transportation project. And you can actually help set up projects for success by the way you do the comprehensive transportation plan, particularly as it relates to things such as environmental impacts for a project, logical termini for projects. Do things right on this end, makes it easier on the back. So, a little idea of where we're going. We're sitting here in February now, again, just kicking this off. We've actually been working on data collection and things for quite a while. As you can imagine, large county, a lot of municipalities, a lot of area, there's a lot of data to be collected. We've been going through and been in contact with many of the municipalities in the county, getting their plans, getting the other counties' plans, a lot of GIS data, a lot of NCDOT data, safety data, for example, and compiling all of that and summarizing it. And we will be kicking off tomorrow morning our first working group, and I'll talk to you about working group and stakeholders here in a little bit, who they're comprised of, what those groups are all about, what kind of guidance they give us. And then there will also be 3 public meetings over the course of the study. The working group and staff really drive and lead the development of the plan, not from a technical standpoint, but for things like where are we going to hold the public meetings. So we'll be asking for staff's input on finalizing some of those details. There'll also be a project website, as you imagine, opportunity to give electronic input, surveys, things of that nature, and also a great place for us to put information. And you'll see a lot about it on social media. We're working with county staff to get things set up there and promote the plan, promote the public engagement opportunities. Again, try to solicit as much feedback as we can. So first phase will be data collection, and then we'll be doing an existing conditions analysis. I mean, you got to know where you're starting before you can know where you're going. So how are traffic conditions now? How are safety conditions now? Again, what projects are planned, the timelines for those projects. And we do all of that in advance of the first public meeting. That public meeting, we were really able to go to the public and say, hey, this is what we're seeing going on. This is what we're seeing in the data. This is what we experienced for those of us that are residents of the county. What are you seeing? Does this match with what you see going on? Are there things we've missed? Are there areas of high congestion or intersections with what the public perceives as to be bad safety? Did we pick those up in our data? Are there other things we need to look at? Then we start to plan for the future. So began to assess what the volumes will be in the future. Sometimes I'll say traffic volumes, but really multimodal volumes. And what sort of opportunities are there to deal with those issues that might pop up in the future? Where are things fine as they currently are? Where are there things fine as they're currently planned? What new things need to happen? Then again, that gives us the opportunity to go back to the public in the middle of the study and say, this is what we heard from you as areas being issues. Here's what we're thinking about are the fixes. What do you think about that? Are there other things we need to do? Then we'll continue to refine those alternatives. We've got some time built in here also for what we call hot spots. There are several of those studied, I believe, in the Southeast Area study. Those are when you've got an intersection, you've got a small area, maybe it needs a little bit more attention to help understand what the issues there and some fixes, typically more short-term fixes. And then we'll go again back to the public and share with them the final recommendations, make any tweaks that we need to make. And wrap up those recommendations and come back to you for adoption. But you'll be hearing from me several times throughout the study, I'm sure. And I'll absolutely invite you to attend any of the public meetings. Hope you'll show up for those and promote those. I mentioned the working groups, again, just to give you an idea of how the study is being guided. The project working group, which meets every other month, that's county staff. They're guiding the technical elements of the project, reviewing information, project materials before it goes to the public. Again, they're taking the lead on guiding us from a technical standpoint. You can see the members of the working group here. And then we have the stakeholder committee, so a much broader list. They're primarily responsible for developing the vision, goals, objectives, providing feedback on the development of the plan, making sure the recommendations meet those visions or meets that vision, and then certainly promoting the plan within their area. Again, this is a countywide plan, but it's also important to understand that we are planning for the county. A lot of what we'll be doing is taking from the municipalities what they have planned, integrating it in, making sure it meshes with what's happening in the county. We talked a lot in the lead up to this plan about also making sure people can move within the county, move between the municipalities. So we'll be focusing on that a lot and how these various municipal plans work together to make again, a comprehensive transportation network. You can see also here representatives from NCDOT, representatives from the planning board, representatives from the development community, the engineering community. So we've got a broad group of folks and very much looking forward to working with them. Then, if you remember back to the schedule, we essentially have the working group and the stakeholder committee meetings staggered so that we're meeting with one group every month. And so one particular group, they'll have a meeting every other month. So throughout the life of the project. It's a good opportunity for us to continuously share what we're working on, continuously get feedback, and to make sure we got a good product at the end of the day. So with that, I'll say thank you and more. Always happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right,
I
any
have a
questions?
question.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about, on this chart here, you're talking about recommendations.
Yes, sir.
Practically speaking, what does that look like? What kind of recommendations do you typically come up with a plan like this?
A wide variety of things. If you think purely about moving cars, new roadway connections, modified roadways, is it a widening? It's 2-lane, does it need to be 4-lane? Does there need to be a new connection between a certain place? Does there need to be an interchange on the interstate? You know, all the projects that you heard Division 4 talk about, all those are types of projects that could be included in a CTP. Sometimes it's operational things, sometimes it's new capacity.
Well, since we don't build roads, as a county, we don't have a Powell bill. Why is it pertinent? Maybe that's a dumb question, but I mean.
No, it's a very good question.
What do we do with these recommendations? How do we use it? What's
so
the value?
again, this is the starting point for getting things into Campo's MTP, for example, getting it into the RPO's plan, getting into the STIP. So we've got to know what we want so we can promote that. Obviously, two more grant funding opportunities now than ever. It can set the county up for, in partnership with others, pursuing those. And then you have to think on the development side, too.
Well, that's what I was thinking was maybe this is a way to back into that land use plan and develop that in a direction that meshes with this.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, the big piece of this is we've got a bright, shiny new land use plan. Super excited about that. What needs to happen from a transportation standpoint to support recommendations in there that are, quite frankly, a good bit different than the way we've seen the county grow over the years. And then also, rezonings, subdivisions, we always hear that line in there on a thoroughfare needing improvement or a thoroughfare with adequate design capacity. This updates that language, and it's also can give guidance on updating our land use ordinances and our development ordinances. Is it reserving half of the right-of-way? Is it constructing half of the right-of-way? Those are kind of things we can get into in a CTP. Again, even though the county doesn't build the roads, they can make the building of the roads easier by reserving the right-of-way.
Great, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right. We look forward to seeing this plan mature and come to fruition here.
Thanks, sir. It'll be a good time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
y'all. Take care.
All right. Now we're getting a little closer in now. Now we have JCATS update on microtransit. We have their executive director, Josh Johnston, here. Thanks, Josh.
Good evening. I was told by two different people to keep this quick, so I won't have to
Well,
run.
we did talk about the board's attention span and getting like this, so.
Yes. So I'm going to give you a little update on Quick Ride. As you know, it started in March of 2023 as a pilot project, partially funded by the commissioners, and the presentation I provided does give you some hard data to show where the success that it's been. So as you know, the pilot was in Smithfield and Selma. It's similar to Uber. Rides can be requested via smartphone, telephone. Right now, the price point is at $6, and it's the official service area is what you see on the map there, Selma and Smithfield. Recently, we are stretching that a little bit, somewhat into Wilson's Mills, and just seeing, as demand dictates, we've been stretching out, but we can't go too much further and still be efficient. We have had an ongoing marketing campaign that did include billboards on 301 for a while. And here are the stats. So from the beginning of the pilot, which started in March, 10 months, we did almost 12,000 rides on Quick Ride with 458 individual unduplicated riders. The vast majority of the rides were booked via phone call, but we're seeing growth in the app. So 2,700, almost 2,800 people are booking through the app, and 382 rides paid via credit card or the app. We're still working to work the bugs out of the app a little bit. A person can book on the app and still pay cash, but that's starting to create some problems sometimes with people learning how to game the system.
That's with your drivers collecting the cash?
Not a fan.
Yeah, me either.
So you see where am I at here? You can see the distribution of the rides here. The vast majority were for general purpose, either banking, shopping, groceries, restaurants. We do service the airport and the train station. So that was almost 8,000 rides. Work is 21%, almost 2,500 rides. And then you can see we contract with some schools. Medical is 10%, and I think medical is low, and it gets really kind of into the weeds a little bit. But with some of the other programs that we operate for medical transportation, sometimes it's easier for them to take Quick Ride. Sometimes it's easier to do another program, but we're trying to give them the flexibility to do what they need to do. And there are other things we're looking at with Quick Ride, such as contracting with the community college. Some of the students do not have adequate transportation, and their foundation is exploring the possibility of funding, prepaid cards for them to get to and forth from school. So all in all, it's been a great success. Some of the frequently asked questions: we have expanded the hours from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have expanded to Saturdays based on requests and demand. The multi-million-dollar question: are we going to be expanding Quick Ride into other areas, specifically Clayton? I'll get into that in a minute. And then, of course, everybody's happy with the $6 price point. Future funding is going to help determine whether we can keep it at $6 or not. And then finally, we mentioned back in June that this was a one-year grant that expires at the end of this coming June. So we have been unsuccessful in finding a sustainable funding source for it. So we're continuing to look. The options that we've seen that make the most sense without involving the county aren't really doable. One of them is only having Quick Ride for disabled and for elderly. And the other one is to divvy up some of our existing funding, which, as JCATS grows throughout the county, divvying that up into other sources isn't realistic either. Just a couple quick numbers, just so you know the overall impact of JCATS right now. In fiscal 2023, JCATS did just under 100,000 rides total. In fiscal 24, annualized the first 6 months of the fiscal year, we're annualized out to 116,000. So the growth is definitely there, and we really haven't seen the impact of Medicaid expansion yet. So, Clayton,
You'll say, so the 12, near the 12,000 is not part of the JCATS 116 that you just.
that's part of it.
It is, okay, okay, quicker, okay.
So Clayton, I've had discussions with officials in the town of Clayton. As Keith mentioned earlier, it sounds like we are going to be successful in getting 5 gas expansion vehicles. It's been at least a decade since we've been able to add to our fleet without having, we replace our vehicles every year based on the state's formula. Haven't been able to add to the fleet for over a decade. We have 5 gas vehicles through Keith's program. Through CMAQ, we've made it through 2 steps. We may get 5 electric vehicles. So that brings us 10 expansion vehicles, which will really help create the flexibility for us to start moving into Clayton. The town of Clayton has indicated that they are willing to provide secure parking and office space for us, probably temporarily at the beginning around the police station until we can find a more permanent location. And what is just now coming to be regarding a funding stream in Clayton is, with the census making Clayton an urbanized area, that for the first time we are able to access the 508307 funds through federal transit. There is a process for us to be approved to do that, which we will be starting this month. I tried to get out of them how much funding that will provide, and they would not even give me an estimate because this is so new. And I begged them, I said, I'm going to the commissioners, can you give me a number? And they said, no. There is a match involved, but that is the best funding stream to operate in Clayton going forward. So I wish I had some more numbers with that, but it's moving forward. I told, before the 5307 really came into the picture for us, I had expressed to the town that it would probably be 2025 anyway, just because of the lag that it gets to order vehicles. The vehicles that we ordered when I first started with JCATS last spring are finally just trickled in November and December. So if I can get those ordered in July, maybe get early 2025, we can start moving over there. On a side note, before I answer questions about that, as you are aware, we had federal funds to build the new JCATS facility. Throughout the course of the summer and into the fall, we've been approached on more than one occasion about other counties and areas that weren't able to spend their allocations in that joint grant, and we said yes. So we are going to start phase 2 of JCATS expansion for the building expansion this spring. We ultimately, another $2.3 million is going into that building.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Mr. Chairman, last week I was in an Alliance Mental Health Board meeting, and an advocacy group was making a presentation, and she spoke about this quick ride option. Their folks have been using it, and she really sung their praises. They're really pleased with it.
Mr. Chairman, I've had the same feedback on this program. It's really made a positive impact on a lot of people that did not have an alternative for transportation. So it's really, really been a good program, and I'd love to see us continue to expand it into other parts of the county.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we need to continue what we're doing as well.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm prepared to give you some rough numbers tonight on Smithfield, Selma, but I don't have to.
Yeah, I was going to say also, I had just talking the last 3 days with somebody had a son in 4 Oaks that would love to be able to work in the Clayton area at Griffles or Novo and doesn't have transportation. And I said, well, just hang in there. We're working on it. She mentioned quick ride. When will it be in 4 Oaks? So I said, well, we're working on Clayton Wilson Mills now. We'll get to it. But I know there's a lot of interest in getting to the community college, where to work, employers getting employees back and forth to work. So I appreciate all that you're doing. Any other questions or comments?
Just one comment. You maintain your site impeccably. Every time I go by, I'm proud to be a part of it.
Everybody should be proud of it. DOT made
Vehicles, everything, they always look top-notch.
We're one of the crown jewels in the state, and that comes up at every DOT meeting I come to. There's a possibility some of the NCDOT oversight people are going to be doing their oversight at DOT at our facility because it's such a nice facility.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about that, but
Well,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going the reverse of planes, trains, and automobiles. We're going to talk about trains next, and we have Mr. Scott Saylor here to give us an update on all things rail. Mr. Saylor?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Scott Saylor. I've been advising the county manager and the board for a little over 2 years on rail issues. This started with what was a study of commuter rail in the Greater Triangle area, and that project is, I think most everybody knows, is on hold, if not dead. And what we've been looking at is what really are the other opportunities for improving rail service in the county, given that you already have really good freight rail infrastructure here and passenger infrastructure here that many counties do not have. And so what things might you look at, or might we look at, to improve what's here in the service capability? Two main points from this first slide, and I'll keep moving here. I know you're short on time. One is all the Amtrak trains in the state operate on the freight network. There are no dedicated passenger lines in North Carolina. Other states, a few others have those, but North Carolina does not. The only exception is the light rail system in Charlotte is separate and independent from the freight system, and it's fully electrified. It's not a conventional diesel railroad. And it runs on very high-frequency service just in the city of Charlotte that they pay for in Mecklenburg County, rather. The other thing is that there are a couple of different kinds of Amtrak trains, and that matters. I'll get to that in a minute, because most of you have heard about the $1 billion grant that the state announced in early December for certain parts of the rail network in the state. But that is that some Amtrak trains, like the ones you have in Selma, are federally funded. They are primarily funded by federal government subsidies to Amtrak. The other kind of Amtrak trains we have in North Carolina bounce between Raleigh and Charlotte every day, and there are 4 of those in each direction. This map is really to illustrate that. It's a little small on the screen here, I know, but the box that says NC Trains to the left says Piedmont Trains, thank you, 73 through 78. Those trains go back and forth every day, 7 days a week, between Raleigh and Charlotte. It's the blue line, if you will, on this map paralleling the red. So as you look at that, I should say the dotted lines to the east are bus connections. Those are not train routes. Amtrak doesn't operate anything east of here in North Carolina. It's going to go from here north to Wilson, Rocky Mount, south to Fayetteville, as you see, but not east of there. Those are our network bus connections that are sponsored also by Amtrak and through ticketed. So if you're in Morehead City, you can buy a ticket on Amtrak, take a bus to Wilson, and board the train there. This gets more important in a minute as we talk about the $1 billion and what opportunities there are, particularly for Johnston County, given how those funds are planned to be invested by North Carolina DOT, who's the recipient of those grant funds. Back in May, you all as a board issued a letter supporting studies of passenger rail on this route through Johnston County. Unfortunately, one of the 8 selected routes for studies was the route here between Raleigh and Selma and south to Wilmington. That's showing on green, in green on this map. The other routes that were selected for studies, these are $500,000 each of study funds for 7 of those. So,
Mr. Reeves, could you zoom in kind of from that Raleigh to Selma piece as much as you can? So, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, let me scroll forward 2 slides. It may help with that.
All right.
Sorry, I bounced you.
Keep her on her toes there, yeah.
There we go. If you can zoom in on that highlighting in magenta there, that purple. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Chairman?
Yeah, I just wanted to be able to see it. Yeah, there we go.
So the study areas are shown in green. One of those, as I said, is Raleigh to Wilmington by way of Selma and Goldsboro. 20 miles of that railroad line to the south near Wilmington is no longer there. It was abandoned. So it would be a long time before I think we see passenger trains all the way to Wilmington. But you already have passenger trains here, and they're the trains that are already running between Raleigh and Charlotte that don't run east of Raleigh every day. And that's, I think, the focus area for the county, if the county has an interest in trying to improve passenger rail service, given that the commuter rail plan now is no longer active for the Triangle area. So North Carolina DOT will administer a $500,000 grant to study future passenger rail between Raleigh and Wilmington on one of those 7. But I want to go back to what's circled in red here because we haven't talked about that yet. That is the $1 billion grant, is what's circled in red. The $1 billion is to fund 2 things for North Carolina DOT to acquire that railroad from CSX, to own it, not just in the portion that's circled in red, but also to the south, toward Sanford and Southern Pines. I don't know how far south yet, I haven't heard. But North Carolina DOT has wanted to buy that line for a while, and it follows the state of Virginia having bought the northern section of that line between the state line and Petersburg, because part of that line is abandoned and it's low-density freight line. So you see the 2 states now starting to sort of join together to create a new, it's not really new, it's the old route, but a new path, if you will, between Raleigh and Washington by way of Richmond, without the way it runs now, which is to Selma here, Smithfield, Selma, and then north to Richmond on the other route, the CSX route, if you will. That's another CSX route, the old Atlantic coastline route. So what would happen, let's say, fast forward, pick a number, 20 or 30 years from now, is there would be trains going to Washington, D.C. and New York on the route that runs where you see the red circle there, on the S line it's called, using not only the $1 billion of federal grant funds, but it would take additional funds to rebuild that railroad to carry trains, particularly at 90 or more miles per hour every day. What may also happen, though, is that when that happens and the planning for that happens, those 8 trains, or 4 each way, if you will, that are running between Charlotte and Raleigh, where are they going to go when they get to Raleigh? Are they going to go north? Or are they going to go east, or some combination of the 2? I don't think we know that yet, and that's kind of the point of, let me go to the last slide here. We know that Amtrak service is going to increase. It's largely federally funded. We don't really know where yet, or who will be first, if you will, but we know a lot of money is going to go into the route north of Raleigh, primarily in Wake County for Phase 1, and then north of there, through Norlina up to Petersburg, Virginia, at some point in the future. The state and Amtrak together determine fares on these trains. They aren't locally determined like the commuter rail would have been. But another aspect of that is in North Carolina, there are no state, no county rather, sales taxes that fund this. Counties that are served by Amtrak, Johnston County I know is one of them, don't have sales tax to fund that. They are primarily federally funded and some state contribution, particularly for those trains that go back and forth only within the state. So my point is, we have 2 things happen here that weren't really connected. The end of a commuter rail plan and the beginning of another phase of significant Amtrak improvements statewide. And I think from a passenger rail standpoint, at least, the expanded Amtrak service is really the only game in town. And Johnston County happens to be well positioned because you have a lot of rail infrastructure here. I don't have to tell you that. You've got that economic development component that some counties don't have. There aren't many counties in the state that have both Class 1 railroads from a freight perspective serving the entire county. These projects take a lot of time to design and build. It's similar to highways in that sense. Nothing's going to happen overnight. But I would emphasize these 2 points, Mr. Chairman, and try to condense this to these 2. Number 1, there's going to be an emphasis on a new northern route to Washington. that S line. The other is, can service be extended on the existing Amtrak route from Raleigh eastward to Selma, points in between, particularly as 30 miles by rail between Raleigh and Selma. So that may be an opportunity to have another station somewhere between Selma and Raleigh. That would make sense. Those stations are being pursued now in Lexington and Davidson County, and also in Research Triangle Park. There is no train station, RTP, either stop in Raleigh or Durham. That will also afford a pretty fast bus or other connection to the airport when RTP gets a train station one day, and it's now in the plans, both at DOT and RTP, and they have funding mechanisms for that station. Mr. Chairman, I'll close with that and take any questions you might have.
All right. Any questions?
I'm familiar with Amtrak, and I'm familiar with the losses that it seems to incur year after year after year, federally subsidized. Is there a danger we're going to get drug into something here as a county that will drag us down and make us, you said there's no sales tax provision to operate it. What is our contribution here if we're, I don't know if it's our contribution going to be ever never ending or whatever?
It may be nominal. By the same token, though, you'd be at the mercy of what the Congress does in funding Amtrak. It bounces around a good bit. But typically, I mean, my experience in 30 years is when there's discussion of dropping service in a district, congressmen and women tend to get focused on that, and they haven't dropped any routes that I know of. If anything, they've added a few.
Yeah.
But also it's slow growth. These are legacy routes. These are primarily old freight passenger routes that existed in the 1970s that Amtrak was chartered to continue to operate.
I know even though we have the infrastructure, I just wonder what our exposure would be. I know good old taxpayer dollars are the final answer a lot of times, but I just wondered if we have any exposures. That was my question, of course.
Well, and that might suggest a more detailed conversation with North Carolina DOT, because every other county has that question. If there's an increase in service, how is it truly going to be funded, and how is it going to be sustained?
Any other questions? If not, I'll add a little bit to that. I think that with the study that's being funded from the Wilmington to Raleigh section, obviously Selma to Raleigh is the last piece of that. So I think we're in a unique position right now to learn a little bit more and have the questions answered. I know we've engaged with the DOT on those, some of those very questions already. They're as interested as we are in trying to look at that for the opportunities, particularly for the growth that we're going to see and the increasing demand for people to be able to get out of their cars and be able to commute to Raleigh or from Raleigh this way. So I think we are very fortunate. We're very fortunate to have Mr. Saylor to help guide us as we look at that. But I think this is kind of a critical time and that we should take advantage of and learn as much as we can, work out the details, and mainly make sure that we aren't forgotten in the billion-dollar run to Richmond, not to forget that little 20-mile section that runs between Raleigh and Selma with, well, that has, is it 5 trains? I know you said 73 through 78.
Yeah,
but
4 trains now, 2 in each direction.
yeah.
Wow. I think you've done a great presentation, and I just think we need more information. I was concerned about the long-term.
And I think there is also an option for a stop somewhere between there, but again, that's for future discussions.
One thing we have to look at is good for our citizens too. It's gonna be
Yeah. Years
get the
ago,
traffic off the roads.
Years ago, in the Army, I had to go to Fort Jackson on a bus, and then later I had an opportunity to go to Fort Jackson on a train, and it was a lot better. A lot better.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Saylor, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we will move on to the plane portion. We have Mr. Phil Lanier.
Planes and automobiles.
Yeah, we're there.
Automobiles, there's a theme tonight.
Yeah, so Mr. Lanier, you give us an update on all the exciting things going on at JNX.
Yeah, Rick did ask me to keep it under 2 hours, so we'll be out of here.
Cut the light.
Thank you for.
Hey, cut the lights off.
I hear you. Let's dim it down. I'm Phil Lanier, Airport Director over at Johnston Regional Airport. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board, for having me tonight to give you all an update on the airport. I first want to start out with thanking my board, a very supportive and engaged board. Mr. Dale Parker was here tonight. He had another engagement here tonight. I've got Secretary Treasurer Bentley Powell, who's been with us for quite a few years now, many years, very supportive of the airport, has taught me a lot. My chairman, Mr. Ken Starling, Vice Chair John Bullock, Member Tim Stevens, Member Ed Aldridge, Member Ken Jones, again, Mr. Dale Parker, all very supportive of the airport, and work very hard. They all have full-time engagements, but they find time to volunteer at the airport and to keep, everybody flying high, if you will. Airport has grown. We've got 28 employees, 8 full-timers and 20 part-timers, all working as a team to grow air transportation in Johnston County safely, responsibly, and transparently, with an emphasis on our community. I want to start out with a pretty extraordinary fact. This has recently come to all of our attention. Over the past few years, we've been tracking air operations. So how many operations come in and out of the airport? The FAA define operation as a landing or a takeoff. Right now, Johnston Regional is leading the state as a general aviation airport. So compared to all other general aviation airports in the state, we're number 1. For 2023, we had 101,918 operations.
Wow.
And to give you an idea of comparison, Charlotte Douglas was at 531,000. They were number 1. RDU was 207,000. Greensboro, PTI, 105,000. JNX, 101,000 operations. I think that is a pretty extraordinary fact when you look back at it. I was looking at the data the other day. We did a master plan AOP update in 2022, and at that time we were estimating somewhere around 73,000 operations. So over a period of 3 years, we're now at 101,000. So very important fact to think about, certainly when you look at capacity of transportation in general, capacity of roads, capacity of rail, capacity of pedestrian. Our 1 mile runway is connecting Johnston Regional to the world, and that's a pretty extraordinary fact. To follow on with that, I did mention my board. One of my board's primary goals and directives to me is to ensure that with this growth, we are emphasizing safety. So once I've sort of reported that fact to them, they asked me to reach out to FAA, notify them of the operations, and back in October of 23, we submitted a request to the FAA Air Traffic Control Tower Program to please complete a BCA for us, the benefit cost analysis, for a potential air traffic control tower. On January 5th of this year, Malcolm Andrews, who is the Director of Enterprise Services with FAA, came back and let us know that the BCA was 1.37. So 1.0 really defines and puts you as a candidate for that air traffic control program. 1.37 is a push-in. So we've got basically 5 years to provide a control tower that successfully has completed an operational readiness inspection. And again, the board has directed me to work with DOT and FAA to find out what that means for our county, how we move forward over the critical path of that program, what grant programs are available to support a potential air traffic control tower. And again, their directive is to make sure that we're not only the busiest GA airport in the state, but that we're also developing it safely and we can sort of channelize that traffic, if you will. It's a great thing, but we need to make sure that we can accommodate that growth. Just to give you a little bit of update on some of the projects, again, I mentioned the airport master plan, airport layout plan. We talked to y'all, or listened to the presentation tonight by Will. Excellent job there. We conducted that master plan and airport layout plan a few years ago. And we are moving forward with our midfield development. That was an area that was identified at that time as integral to the growth of the airport. So we've completed environmental assessment that's required. NEPA's required through FAA. And yeah, we look forward to permitting that area and getting that off the ground here pretty soon. We recently received a $19 million Transportation Reserve Program grant for the development of our midfield and other airport improvements. And this is primarily due in part to the hard work of my airport authority and certainly our Johnston County delegation, Representative Strickland, Representative White, Representative Penny, and Senator Sari have been instrumental in the support and the ability for our airport to grow. So a big shout out to them for their vision and their ability to really see the importance of the airport in our community and air transportation in Johnston County. And I will say there's always an expectation and a recommendation for local contribution towards projects and for all our projects. So please keep that in mind. Another great thing for the airport here, we recently worked with the town of Smithfield and Johnston County as well, and our planning consultant, Mark Arnold, to develop and pass an updated zoning ordinance, an updated airport overlay district. Again, that's important just to protect the safety interest of the airport, and as we grow, protect the community. It's important that we let people know the type of vital air transportation activities that are occurring at the airport. And, you know, it's a two-way street. We want everybody to come out to the airport, see the importance of it, but we're also excited to know that future development around the airport won't be a detriment to the growth of the airport. It's very important that we preserve the investment that we're making out there. A couple of construction projects that we've got going on. We've got an ongoing drainage improvements project. There's always a need to improve drainage. We've got a small parking lot expansion that just was completed. We've added some electric car charging stations, and we basically just about completed the site work to support our second public-private partnership since I've been there. We're currently working with that private partner in this public-private partnership and look to have an SFBO, which is a specialty fixed base operator, has a charter flight group that'll be working out of this aircraft hangar. It's 120 by 100. It's a fairly large facility. If you come to our terminal, you'll see adjacent to the terminal what looks like the skeleton of a facility right now, but pretty soon that'll be a vital facility, again, for growth at the airport. So 120 by 100 foot hangar and 8,000 square foot office complex will be attached to it right next to the terminal. So great things to come. We just completed 2 new box hangars. Those are 80 by 80. They're fairly large facilities. We received the certificate of occupancy in those for those in December, and they've already been filled with turbine aircraft. So we're 100% in demand and 100% at capacity. We remain at capacity at the airport. I'd love to see us have a little space to be able to offer other folks. We do continue to get folks requesting to be at the airport or do business at the airport. But bottom line is we're 100% at capacity. So something we deal with every day. I did want to reiterate the 2023 Economic Impact Report study. $210 million economic impact for our airport. Wow. 210, that's direct, indirect, and induced economic output. 1,110 jobs are supported by our airport here in Johnston County. And 146 based aircraft. So $74 million in personal income and $13.6 million in tax revenue. Very important. Wow. We recently had a stellar annual audit, thanks to Chad McClam and the hard work of our team over at the airport and the county. We certainly do appreciate all their support. But again, I'll open this up to any questions you have of me, and I appreciate your time.
Any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Bass?
Are there any plans to lengthen the runway in the near future?
That's a good question. There is. We've got a plan on the books for 6,200 feet runway extension. We're currently at 5,500. The pavement out there is, anytime you do a runway extension, you want to look at the strength of the airport, strength of the runway. So we're looking at strengthening, bringing it up from 60,000 pounds dual wheel to 100,000 pounds, and we're looking to take it from 5,500 to 6,200 feet.
Are we looking at passenger service from there anytime soon?
Not passenger service at this time. I always keep an open mind to everything in life, but I just don't know about passenger services. And I'll say that just because of its proximity, our proximity to RDU.
That was one of the questions I had, but the other one was, in a training situation on a touch-and-go landing, does that count as two operations?
It does, yeah. Per the FAA, once the touchdown happens and a takeoff happens, each of those is an operation. Very good question.
The length of the runway, would that have any bearing on getting a tower?
I don't know if it would have bearing on the tower. It might be a component to the BCA that was, and I'd be glad to look into that for you if you'd like me to, but generally they look at the type of aircraft, and they look at how many operations are coming in and out of your airport.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a very good question.
Mr. Chairman, I had just a question and a comment. Bill, the control tower, it's our responsibility to build the facility, and then the FAA will staff it, is
That's
that correct?
correct.
Okay, so once it's built, then they will provide the staffing and
Yes, sir.
operate it.
Yes, sir. Our responsibility will be to keep up the facility, air conditioning units,
Right.
making sure the roof and stuff like that's good, but
Okay.
they would staff the facility. And again, FAA does look at for us to construct that facility, and how we do that, it's a multifaceted thing, but very good question.
Well, if people have never been there and seen this operation, it is really, really impressive. Y'all do a fantastic job. I'm a huge fan of the airport. Y'all are really, really, and your future plans are so impressive. I would encourage people to come by and take the tour, because it really is. A vibrant county needs a vibrant airport, and I think we have that, and you continue to lead us in that direction, and we
Amen.
appreciate that very much.
Thank y'all for your
Thank you.
leadership and appreciation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lanier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir.
Chief Powell, thank you for being here with him.
That's right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Board member.
Yeah, board member, yeah.
Thank you, Bentley.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and our final informational item is a master plan update from Dr. Vern Lindquist at JCC.
The key word there is final. I hope that'll make you happy. I'll give you an advanced look at my notes. It's all on one piece of paper, so.
And it's pretty big print too, so that's good.
Yeah, well, even with the glasses, this time of night, it needs to be big print. And this is intended, by the way, just to be a very high-level overview of the master plan. The process is actually still going on. We had a final opportunity for faculty and staff today during our all-personnel meeting to make some comments upon some parts of the plan, and its final iteration gets presented to the college sometime this week. So, but much of it has been determined, and I'm hoping to give you a 20,000-foot view to continue the airport analogy. I want to thank you first, Mr. Chairman, and rest of the commissioners for your support, for your forward-thinking investments in Johnston Community College to this point. When I'm out at national conferences and I talk about, the Workforce Development Center and what you guys did there with the RTZ, people's jaws hit their chests. They just have never seen anything like that. It's the very model of how the private and public partnerships ought to work. And the college and the county are the envy of everyone I talk about that project too. The JOCO promise as well. It shows that you all understand the importance of the college to its current residents, its businesses, and the healthcare community. Right now, frankly, for the college, this is a kind of a Goldilocks moment. We've got a fairly solid foundation, and our substance is what we offer. The facilities that we've got, we're in a place where the population is increasing, and the college gets solid community support. Frankly, I meet all the other 57 presidents multiple times during the year. I wouldn't trade my job leading this college for any other position in the state at this point. We are in a really great position. So the overview of the master plan. We contracted with LS3P to do a comprehensive plan. So that's not just our current space utilization in our facilities, but also taking into account the increase in population in the county, also projections for not just population growth, but for the kind of growth we will see as a result for our programs what kind of programs are going to need going forward, how the workforce needs of the county are going to change, and how the college is going to need to adapt as a result so that it can continue its mission of providing for the workforce needs of the county. It is focused on the next 10 years, but it really sets the foundation for a much longer period, probably between 40 and 50 years, because it is going to be putting the spine down for an awful lot of meat later on. The process began in August. We had stakeholder meetings regularly in parallel with the Public Safety Facilities Master Plan, which are now both integrated into this much larger plan. And that final report is coming soon. I'd like to begin by talking about some of the numbers that they gave us, LS3P. And I have to say, this was actually new to me. I've been involved in 3 different master plans for facilities at colleges before. Never one that was this substantial or this detailed. And one of the things that they did was not just looking at our facility, but also looking at the kinds of things that are happening to us that are going to direct the kinds of facilities that we're going to need. So, as you know, they project the population of Johnston County to go up about 23% in the next decade. That's probably not new to you. Our enrollment should go up about 20% in that time. Those were the numbers they gave us when they began this process. And they gave us a really interesting chart that shows where we're going to be every year. We're way above that line already. Fall we're up 12%. We're up about 11% this semester. And every time I ask my institutional researcher when we're going to get better at predicting our increases, she just smiles and says, probably never. If we continue along this route, the 20% is going to be a very, very, very underestimate of where we're going to be. What does that translate into? So if 20% does hold, that would be an additional 800 students or so at the end of the 10-year period, which would be an extra $3.4 million in revenue for Johnston Community College. That's very positive. Using the economic multiplier that we get from our last report from EMSI, which is about a 3.5 multiplier, that means it's a positive to the county of about $11.5 million. That would be great. Right now, though, state figures tell us that we lose about 1,200 students a year right now to Wake Tech. They go there largely for programs that we already offer, just general education courses, English, math, history, psychology, sociology, things like that, and also some healthcare programs. Currently, that would be a cost to the college of about $5 million a year. The economic multiplier added to that means that the county itself is probably losing upwards of $17 million a year in what we could be circulating in this county. That's now. Of course, Wake Tech is opening up the new campus in Wendell. They have plans in place to open up a 120,000 square foot facility at White Oak, and that 1,200 students that we're losing a year is something that we might worry could go north instead of the way we would like it to go. So LS3P, given all this background information and those other things, estimates that we need to add a number of different programs which are in tiny, tiny font that none of us can read, even me. But most of them are listed there to the left. That is, we're going to need to add programs in allied health, emergency services, imaging, more nurses, nurse aid, massage therapy, farm tech. Those are the things we currently have. We're going to need more space for. We're going to need to add programs in surge tech, respiratory therapy, home health, PT and OT assistant, lab techs, health information management, and perhaps even ophthalmology. Those programs are all going to be very space intensive. We're already beginning the paperwork now to begin respiratory therapy as we speak. We're hoping to have some announcements about that in the very near future. Because most of those programs are healthcare related, LS3P suggests that we try to locate a facility of about 150,000 square feet in the Clayton area near the hospital. If we move programs there, it opens up space in Smithfield so that we could expand public safety. And the public safety master plan, the first round of it, detailed all the needs that we had. But it was created in a vacuum. That is, the public safety master planning folks didn't know we were doing the other master plan. When we took their plan and incorporated it into the overall master plan, we found that if we have a new facility that we construct, we're going to be able to vacate a number of buildings on main campus and allow lots of other programs to expand in this way. So if we relocate health science programs off campus, we're able to consolidate CTLA, ECA, and the other Johnston County High School programs into what's currently our health building. That would be a big boon for them. They're very tight on space now, and the size of those programs is currently limited because of the space that we have. That allows us to empty out the Smith building, which is where they currently are, and we can put the public safety folks in there. They can keep their current building. They can also have this other building. In addition, because we're getting the facility in Four Oaks, we're going to be able to evacuate some other parts of our campus, so they'll have spaces for the ambulances and some other big equipment. The renovation of Smith would be a fairly minor project because it's already classroom space, and classroom space is really what public safety is going to need in that facility. A little farther down the list, obviously, is we're going to get to the LC building, which is where the CNA program is. It's going to need some work too, and we can't really consolidate things there until we move those other things around. That's the very, very high level version of what we're seeking to do with the master plan. It's obviously, there are many, many, many projects you'll see when the complete plan gets presented to you. It's 80 to 100 pages, and it's like all master plans. It's full of many, many details that are probably never going to happen, not in 5 or 10 years. But it does show us the kinds of things that we're going to need to do to be well positioned as we go forward for the much longer range, which would be 20, 30, 40 years from now.
The new building that's recently been completed as you first come on campus off 70 Business, is that occupied, or what's the plans for that building?
It is completely occupied at this point. I'm still fighting a little bit with state construction to complete the paperwork. But no, the building is being occupied. It's currently being fully utilized. We've got a couple tiny tweaks we're going to make to it ourselves. But we have taken complete, not only complete ownership of the building, but also we've taken control over the final construction stages. So the tiny things we might have dithered on for the next 6 or 7 months to get perfectly correct, we're going to correct ourselves.
Dr. Williams, I've got a question about the potential development on that slide that you had, the current progress. It shows that moving EMS to Clayton. And I guess my question is one of the things that we've really pushed for over the years is that fire, EMS, and law enforcement work incidents together forever and ever, amen. And so that training and then the duplication of being able to use the same driving simulators and all that stuff. How do you see that working if you're going to move that entire program to Clayton? Is that going to require all that to be duplicated in Clayton also, or would they travel back to Smithfield to do that part of the?
We're actually not going to move that. That was part of an early version of the plan, and they forgot to take it out for that slide.
Good answer. Good answer. Great answer.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, thank you.
As soon as you asked the question, I looked and said, shoot.
Good answer. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Sure. Thank you for the update.
Thank you very much. And I do want to say you have your head of the Board of Trustees Lynn Austin here, and trustee extraordinaire, helps on everything, Hank Daniels. So thank y'all for coming tonight as well.
If they were here, they kept poking me, make sure I was still awake for the end of the meeting, so.
Put you on the end of the agenda.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Vern.
All right, that moves us on to the lengthy manager report and comment section. All right, and we'll look at the equally lengthy board comments, I think.
I think I'm gonna skip.
You know, tonight's program has been a good visit to the various things that we're charged with from time to time. It just makes you realize all the things that come under our purview. And of course, it makes you realize how great a staff we've got to make sure all this works.
Absolutely. Chairman Harris?
Yes, sir. Just a couple of real brief things. I think this is a preview of a very busy and intense planning session coming up in the next couple of weeks. One additional thing I just left at each board member's seat. It's just some statistical data. You can do with it what you will. But since we had a nice presentation this morning from the charter school, these are the charter school numbers that actually pass through the Johnston County Public Schools. There's actually about 42 charter schools that money goes from Johnston County Public Schools to those charter schools on a monthly basis. And year to date, which is half a year, it's just under $6 million that has been passed on to different charter schools.
So the money follows the student.
The money follows the student. Now, it's paid monthly, so if the student goes back to the public schools, then the money stops, obviously. But they reconcile every month to make sure whatever students are at whatever school. So just some interesting reading. You can do with it what you will. Thank you.
Let's go home.
I'm ready to go home too. Did I hear a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Rick.
Thank y'all.
Rick.